therapy. And I wanted to fight my therapist when he told me this. He said, Lena, what happened in your life is not your fault, but healing from it is your responsibility. Confronting, right? Because own your stuff. That's self-leadership. It's saying, you know what? I might not be able to do all these things that are required to get me to the end game, but getting to the end is my responsibility.
Hey, you found Ways We Learn, an investigation of how learning happens across all ages and modalities. Let's go learn something. So you posted this week, and it feels sort of connected, the thoughts on self-leadership. You said, and you channeled Claire Huxtable, and I loved that you took us back there, but you said, if we can't effectively self-manage, we definitely ain't leading anyone anywhere, anytime, ever. Can you talk more about self-leadership and how what that means to you, how you apply it, how that fits into the program that you've built, and just how does that thinking about that help you help others?
So self-leadership is deeply rooted in the CEO DNA process, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the leverage part of the learn, love, leverage, right? It's the understanding that I've got to lead myself in a way that aligns with who I am as a leader with my CEO DNA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've got to walk into every project knowing, Lena, you're not a finisher. Don't even walk into this space as if you are a finisher. Don't even fake the funk. Just walk in being who you know you are, and then figure out what support you need to make the project happen, right? It's being self-led and being able to say to yourself, you're not going to do this thing. Let's not play the game. Let's not pretend like you're going to be able to do the thing, because that's not your bag. So what you need to do is go in as the leader you know yourself to be, and then figure out how to make the rest happen with support, with team, with your network, with colleagues, whoever, right? And self-leadership, it's really it's the critical piece. It's that piece of being able to say, you know what? I'm not good at all the things, and I don't have to be,
Mm-hmm.
but this piece of it, I'm responsible for this piece. I'm responsible for I am responsible for us. When I say us, I mean CEO Rising getting to the stage 3 of the vision. I'm responsible for that. Does that mean I'm going to do all of the things to get us there? Heck no. That'd be ridiculous. But am I responsible? This is something I learned in therapy. And I wanted to fight my therapist when he told me this. He said, Lena, what happened in your life is not your fault, but healing from it is your responsibility. Confronting, right? Because own your stuff. That's self-leadership. It's saying, you know what? I might not be able to do all these things that are required to get me to the end game, but getting to the end is my responsibility. That's my job, right? That's self-leadership. That's saying, Lena, that thing that happened, that wasn't anybody else's fault. That was you being in somebody else's business, not minding your business, not doing what you need to do as a leader, not doing what you know you need to be doing as a leader, right? That's you in somebody else's lane, or that's you not present in your lane. And so that's why this didn't get done. That's what self-leadership is about. And it's almost like in life, self-leadership in life is almost like reparenting, right?
Hmm.
It's almost like reparenting in life. So self-leadership in business rather is almost like reparenting for life, right? So we learn the skill of reparenting. Like, listen, you got to go to bed on time. Otherwise, tomorrow you are going to be a crankpot, right? You don't even want to know me if I don't eat greens every day. I promise you, I'm an ogre. I turn into something from Shrek if I don't have greens every day. Literally, right? It's that reparenting, but from a CEO perspective of, listen, I need my water. I need my elements. I need my things. I need my this. I need my that. I need to, if I don't have the confidence, then I need to be able to admit I am feeling really insecure about this thing. I'm going to go to my testimonial file and I'm going to read those testimonials to myself and I'm going to get myself amped up so that when I go in this room, I don't give off a vibe like I'm not supposed to be there. I go in this room and I take up some damn space.
Hmm.
That's self leadership.
So it's that ownership, knowing yourself, knowing who you are, what you can bring, and not just
Yeah.
ignoring that and blaming others or saying, "Hey,
Ignoring
get out of
it
my
and like
way."
winging it and
Yeah.
expecting, or even like asking for support. I remember a few years ago I got accepted to this kind of private networking group, I guess you could say. And at the time I thought it was like big deal because the people that they had paired me with for our first meeting, I mean, they were literally anchors on television news. Like I was like, whoa, this is
Well.
all right. Like, and I remember I did not go to my testimonial file. I called my mom and I said, I'm a grown woman and I call my mom mommy. That's the Latina in me. And I said, mommy, I said, I got invited to this thing. I got accepted. I applied. Remember that thing I told you about? I said, I don't feel that these women they've got me paired with, these people are on TV. And, I don't, I'm not on TV. This is not, what I mean. I've been on TV. I've been, on CNN with Don Lemon and all that stuff. But like, I'm not on TV. I'm not an anchor on TV every day. And she said to me, she said, they accepted you. You are going to be in that room with them next week. You go there and you have just as enough right to be there as they do.
Hmm.
And you go there and you just be you and you take up your space. And that's all you've got to do. Because if you weren't supposed to be in the room, you wouldn't have even seen the application. You wouldn't have, the application wouldn't even have been accepted.
Hmm.
Right. And I thought, okay. So again, it's about acknowledging that at that moment, normally I'm a confident person. I didn't feel confident, but I didn't hide it. I didn't try to like pretend. I
Hmm.
went and I got support from someone I
Hmm.
knew who was going to say, you go and do that. You do it. If that's what you want to do, you go do that thing. Right.
Yeah.
Um, and that's self leadership. That's being able to say, go to bed on time, recognize where you feel like you might start to fall short, see it and nip it in the bud,
And
drink your
as
water.
from a glass bottle or from the tap. But what I'm getting from all of this, I think, is that the overall message is look inward before looking outward. That's
Yeah.
what the CEO DNA is about. That's what the visioning is about. The self leadership is about. And then as you
Yep.
start to really understand yourself and the sort of mechanics who make you who you are, what makes you who
Yeah.
you are, that's the thing that allows you to then start to expand to think about your product, your pricing, your whether it's managing others or building a business or whatever. But your whole, as I'm just from this conversation, as I'm taking this, the whole message is start by looking inward really, really deeply, because you're not going to succeed at doing the big things unless you start there.
Absolutely. There are 4 pillars to the order of operation framework, and there's 13 operators, right? The first pillar is introspection,
Hmm.
looking inward. The second one is influence. And then the third one is income, looking at the money, right? That's all like your offers and your pricing and your business model and that sort of a thing. And then the fourth one is independence. Getting other people to come in, running your business based on data, having your business be able to run without you being involved in the day to day, right? So there's an order of the operations.
Mm-hmm.
There's an order that it goes in, right? It's the introspection first. And then it's the influence. It's the let me get myself, now that I'm feeling myself and I know who I am, let me put myself out there. Let me start marketing,
Hmm.
right? Let me start getting myself out there and getting on Sean's podcast, right? And then it's now, how do I monetize this thing that this engine that I've just sparked up? How do I monetize this? And then it's like, now how do I get it to run?
It makes a lot of sense to go from
Thank
in
you.
to out. I mean,
A
clearly you've
lot
put a
of work has gone into it.
little bit of thought into this.
Tiny
What
bit.
a tiny bit. Looking back, so you've been a CEO. You did that for I think about 10 years. You are now teaching people how to be CEO.
Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest learning that you've made as you've gone through this whole process? If you picked one big thing, like a light bulb moment, what would it be?
Oh, wow. Um,
Or I'll give you two if you need two. That should solve this.
I like one. One makes you focus.
All right, let's focus it
Um,
up.
I would have to say, for such a long time, I resisted speaking, like speaking engagements and that sort of thing. For such a long time, I resisted sharing my point of view, even. I resisted uh, telling people I don't believe in competition because I thought people are gonna think you're some sort of weirdo. What do you mean? You're in business. You don't believe in competition? That's ridiculous. Everyone's got competition, right? And for such a long time, I just I kept those things to myself. I would share them every now and again with clients, but I kind of kept that to myself, and I really wish I hadn't. Because the moment I started surfacing those beliefs, the moment I started surfacing my positioning, the moment I started saying, hey, it's really important that people be able to have access to us, um, and have access to um, this framework and teachings, and not have to plunk down, six figures, to work with you.
Hmm.
Um, well, to work with me. Um, the moment I started just showing up as me, legit me, like no filter me, that was the moment that my business really took off,
Hmm.
and I was able to have the business that loves me back.
Hmm.
I was able to experience like just what I call unbridled joy in my business and be happy with my business. Like, I'm proud of this thing. I'm
Wow.
happy. There's not a part of me that I'm caging or walling off to be accepted. It's just me. This is full on me. And
Hmm.
it's why I tell people, if you don't like me, if you don't like how I deliver, if you don't like how I present, you're never going to like it in CEO Rising, because we don't have a whole bunch of associate coaches and junior coaches, and there's no bait and switch. You get me full on in CEO Rising. Like, I'm it,
Hmm.
you know? And that was the thing that I had to learn, was just do those things, speak and say, and do it with, this isn't a thing about consistency. This is just more like that idea you have in the shower. Don't freaking write it in your notepad and let it collect digital dust. Like, put it someplace, share it with somebody, put it on LinkedIn, tweet it, make a podcast, like, do something with it. Because for so long I thought, like, oh, that's just kind of this wild idea that I got. And maybe maybe it might not make a difference. And I just started to go whole hog with putting my thought scholarship on the front burner and not back burnering it, and saying, this is what I believe. We might not believe the same things. We might not have had the same lived experience, but this is what I've come to after my lived experience as a CEO, as someone, as you say, who now teaches people to become their best version of CEO.
It's powerful.
Sean,
Yeah.
I have a question for you. Will you take a
Oh,
question on your own podcast?
absolutely. I can
What
always edit
have
this
you
later.
I love it. Sean's like, I'll do whatever you want. I have edit veto. What have you learned from producing this podcast and talking to brilliant people?
Oh, good question. Well, there was sort of a light bulb moment for me as we were talking, and I sort of put all this together and said, and I don't. You may have mentioned the pillars before. I think you when we talked the first time just about doing this, you may have mentioned them, but it clicked that you're doing this inside to outside approach, this like introspection to
Yeah.
then moving out approach, and it just that makes so much sense to figure out who you are, what your vision is, where you're coming from, what do you have to offer, what do you want to offer, and then really figure out what to do with it. And as I've sort of flailed my way through starting my own business, I think I've done some of that, but definitely not the kind of deep work that I think you're doing with this. And
Mm.
so it kind of got me thinking about the need to really go back and figure out more about what my strengths are and what my vision is, what I'm trying to accomplish. And I totally get how that's going to clarify, what you're trying to do down the road. That was just an awesome question. Thank you so much
You're
for asking that.
welcome. You're absolutely welcome. I always try to ask the host a question because I just think so often they're on the other side, and it's good for the audience
Yeah.
to kind of hear them talk about themselves through their own lens. And it's good for people to kind of
Yeah,
be able to
totally.
see what you're learning as you're doing this, because I'm sure you are learning as you're doing this.
Absolutely, yeah, and it was fun to think back on that stuff and think about where
Yeah.
it was, yeah. Well, Lena, again, just thank you so much for spending your
Yes.
time with me today. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you. It's
joining.
been well worth it. Happy. Thank you so much for having me. And thanks to everyone for listening.
My pleasure. Thank you for joining. All right, folks, so that's all for now. Thank you for listening, and always keep learning. Did you learn something just now? Get the full episode of Ways We Learn wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, we'd love to get your rating or review.